Well, the Kingmaker and the Rebel King, I'll talk about those just a little bit. I'm not one of those people who's super strategic. Like when I'm planning, like, okay, I'm going to write some stepbrothers, I'm going to write some billionaires, I'm usually writing from something that kind of like I saw and I'm like, ooh, and what if they kissed, And so I was watching the pipeline protest. I saw the pipeline protest on television. And that's really what inspired the Kingmaker. And I wanted to write it from, well, first of all, I really interrogated, if I am the person to write this, because I'm not Indigenous, I am marginalized, but I'm not Indigenous. If I am the person to write this, how am I going to do it responsibly? So there was I just want everybody to know that this came from a place of me making sure that I wasn't going to be appropriative. I interviewed probably 12 to 15 Indigenous women as a part of this process, incorporated them as beta readers. So, along the way, consulted with a medicine man. So it's
And I want to interrupt you right there because
yeah.
you put a note at the front of that book that says that. And
Yeah.
I was so struck, and I have goosebumps even as I'm saying this to you, because I was so struck by that. And I agreed, Raquel. I love that note. I read it like probably 4 times. And then I went and just started doing the Google down the rabbit hole of a whole lot of things that I didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean about, if anybody's been watching on Amazon Prime, the Louise Penny mini series that they've been running, which is all about missing Native women and missing
Right.
Indigenous women. So that's the background story for that whole series.
Yeah.
You can see that that's like there, but I was just so impressed by your willingness to be upfront about that and talk about that and just say, I'm gonna really make sure that I'm authentically in that space and representing it right,
Yeah.
so love that.
Yeah. And one thing that when people ask about writing beyond their cultural experience, one of the big things that I always say to do is to make sure that you are amplifying the own voices. And that's something that I definitely always do, especially around these titles, is making sure that I'm amplifying Indigenous romance writers along with my own work. So that's kind of what inspired that. And then it just went on and on and on. The Hoops series, actually, it wasn't even going to be a series in the beginning. So many of my books start with feminine rage. I don't know if you guys remember Ray Rice, the football player who knocked out his fiance in the elevator in 2018. I saw that, and all of the cultural conversation was around, is he going to lose his contract, and what's the NFL going to do? And her story, her humanity was completely swallowed in all the speculation. And I was like, I'm going to write a book, about this. And my husband was like, a romance novel? And I was like, yes, a romance novel.
And I love that too, because again, this is, you think, like one of the things you say in Hoops is you think my story.
Right.
Like you actually just come out and say, you think everything about me, but you actually don't.
Right. And that's really what that came from, was how muted I felt she was and her own experience, her agency was during that whole debacle. And so I wrote that story. And again, in consultation with probably 20 survivors, social workers, workers in shelters, and with beta readers, survivor and social worker beta readers, wrote that book. And then as I was writing the book, these other characters started kind of like popping out. And I was like, oh, wait, this is a series. And I went on to write Blockshot and, of course, Hookshot. And Blockshot is kind of a little bit of a palate cleanser. It's the sexiest of the 3. The hero is a little bit of an asshole / sociopath, but it's the lightest of the 3. And then you come with Hookshot at the end, which is not as heavy as Longshot, but deals still with some heavier issues. So Yeah.
You
And
know,
that's my
so
this is my most popular and best-selling series is Hoops, and Long Shot is my best-selling and most popular book. It won the Rita, which brought a lot of attention, of course, but yeah.
yeah, I love all of it, just so you guys know, and I read all of it. So so another question, we've been talking, we've talked also about book talk and the barriers to entry there that exist for Black authors. And we want to work with you to unravel that and create new opportunities. So could you tell everyone, or would you share some of your experiences and what you've perceived in that space?
Yeah, I think that, well, it's systemic racism, you know, and I think TikTok has been very upfront about the fact that their algorithm suppresses the content of creators of color. And most of Black creators have gone on strike. They've taken their accounts down. They've been loud about it, and nothing's really being done about it. What I think is most outrageous for me, and I'll just say this and then we can talk about solutions, it is systemic racism, but it's also, and I don't even know how to fix this, you know, it's like, okay, we'll fix racism. It's also internalized racism where there are Black and brown readers who are reluctant to support Black authored and brown authored work. And there's a perception that they're like, oh, if it's by a Black person, it's going to be ghetto. It's going to be drugs, you know, it's going to be baby mama drama. And yet they read mafia romance where there's Italians and there's Russians who deal drugs, who deal guns, and they'll read single parent romance and not call it baby mama drama, but when it's written by a Black person, it's baby mama drama. So what I'm saying is it's systemic racism, but it's also internalized bias that we're working against. And what I've seen is increased white adjacency increases your chances of succeeding on TikTok. There's a big controversy right now, huge controversy right now. I am not going to say anything about this, what this author has chosen to do, but there's a white author who wrote a Black romance, which is not possible, meaning a Black romance by definition is two Black characters written by a Black person, but a white author wrote a sports romance with two Black authors, two Black characters, and it exploded. 6,000 reviews on Amazon, top of the charts, like went all the way to number 5 on Amazon. White adjacency, even someone seeing a white face as the author reduces the otherness between the reader and the author, if that makes sense. Meaning, yep. I could write the same book and they see that I'm Black and it is categorized as other and maybe not for me, but they see a white author wrote it, and white readers who wouldn't give me a chance would immediately think, well, maybe. And then there are Black and brown authors who also somehow feel that what we do is inferior. We're working, and I don't mean to be on a soapbox, but we're working against so many elements from all sides, even within our own communities. So that's the issue, you know, and when you type in sports romance, you would have to type in Black sports romance and it's not just with, you know, books. If you want makeup, and you want to see Black creators, if you don't type in Black before it, they don't come up. So we are.
Yeah, so Bracha has a point for you, Kennedy, and I'm here for it too. I think we should work. I don't know if you're going to be willing to do this, but if you are willing to do it, I think, are you frozen? God, no. No, you're not.
No, I'm not frozen. I was intent. I was so intent on reading the comments, I looked frozen.
Oh, okay. All right. I think it might be really interesting for you to do a TEDx talk about this subject. I think that could be really, really interesting. And Pam, I think that might be I mean, if Kennedy, if you're up for it, I've done a TEDx talk, so I can talk about it and what that experience was. But I think it might be really interesting for our whole community for you to say some of this. I don't want to take all of the time on this because I also want to go to the other side of this, which is what are our hopes, our aspirations, our goals for the books? Like let's go from one end to the other. Let's go.
Yeah. What are my hopes? Well, I think I articulated a little bit to you guys, even when we were at Book Bonanza, what my hopes are for my work. I want as many people as possible to find my books, not just because I'm the bomb, but because so much of what I don't write books unless I have something to say. And if I feel like I have something to say, I feel like it's for someone, for example, and I know this isn't you guys' book, but Before I Let Go, the book I recently published that has such an emphasis on mental health and depression and therapy. My DMs are flooded every week with people who are saying, I called my insurance company to figure out how I can go to therapy after I read Before I Let Go. My husband and I started marriage counseling after I read Before I Let Go. I write for impact. And what excites me is that partnering with you guys, that the impact of these messages and of these stories would be spread wherever we can spread it. Because I just want more people. And for me, because I write marginalized communities, I write aspirational Black and brown women, and I want to put that out into the world. I want people to see marginalized women as aspirational, as intelligent, as bold, as powerful, but also as vulnerable and as human. It's like we always have to be the strong Black woman. And I write books where, yes, I'm the strong Black woman, but I'm just as human as you are. And I get to break, I get to bend, I get to be vulnerable. And I want that image to be projected into the world through my work.